All right, well, way to go. Can't wait to see where the standings are, and we will do all the math. Thank you, Jordan and Cam. Great job of just leading us tonight. So, let's switch gears for a moment. Here and wherever you are joining us, we're so glad that you've decided to join us from your living room. Oh, we got everybody wound up in the room now. So we're teaching out the top 10 greatest marriage plays. Last week we taught out number 10, choose your team.
Yeah, you know, most people just assume that when they get to the wedding day and they sign the marriage license, that they are automatically on the same team. But that simply is not true, because people get distracted, right? We talked about the different roles that people take on, the role of referee or scorekeeper or coach or replay official or spectator, and even the rival team player, which means sometime after the wedding, they need to make a decision to set aside the role, to turn in their jersey, trade it for something else, and start playing as a team.
Okay, that was number 10. Then we went on to number 9, which was pursue your player. And we said, hey, before the wedding, when the hormones are raging and you are on the hunt, it is so easy to pursue your player. But right now, married 7 years, married 9 years, married 15, 25, 35, 45 years, are you still pursuing your player?
You know, in basketball, there are 3 fundamentals: dribble, pass, and shoot. And in marriage, there are 3 fundamentals of pursuing your spouse. The first one we talked about last week was pursue with your eyes. Have that awareness of your spouse. Secondly, pursue with your questions. And thirdly, pursue with your actions.
And we wrapped up last week with number 8, which is bring your brick. And the point was really simple. We said, hey, think about that bridge in London. Most of us think of it as a single entity, a big bridge in London. But the reality is it's really made up of 31 million intentional laying of those brick moments.
Yeah, those small, intentionally placed words and actions and moments.
So Carolyn and I, we will confess, some of you came to us and said, are you carrying your brick? And we forgot
I didn't have my brick with
That
me.
was embarrassing. So we decided to change our strategy. So we made keychains out of our bricks. So now we cannot forget our brick, all right? So we joined our brick. In fact, every day we join our bricks physically and we get together. Now, I also heard some of you using this as a euphemism, and now you're using click the bricks as a euphemism for making love.
I don't know.
Why are you shaking your head? No, I think that's awesome. That is so great. Like whatever it takes is so great. So you got. We're working really hard on this, and realizing that as we want to nail this whole thing down, that is going to take some effort, and there's going to be a downside to this whole thing. So we are going to do our very best to help remind you about these various things. But there's so many of them. There's going to be 10, and you're not going to remember all 10 of them, especially in a crisis moment. You probably won't remember all 10.
And that's why most organizations or teams, they come up with a little code or a formula that everyone can remember. Formula like Navy SEALs, for instance. I used to think Navy SEALs were just called that because they spent so much time in the water. But it actually does stand for something. It stands for sea, air, and land, speaking of the elite capacity to work in anywhere and under any circumstance.
That's right. There's a football coach named Lou Holtz, and he wanted his team to remember to win, W-I-N, which was what's important now. He always wanted them to know what's important now. And so every time they got out in the field, they're thinking, win, what's important now? They remembered that forever. It was so simple.
And I once heard a business leader named Jim Collins talk about BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. And that stuck with us. That 4 little acronym has stuck with us for over a decade.
Yeah, a couple of decades, actually. So we want to give you a 3-letter formula that we're hoping, it's going to help you build a championship marriage. And we're hoping that 2 decades from now, we'll bump into you someplace and we'll ask you, do you remember the formula? And you'll know it because it's so easy to access.
And that formula is found in our book, Relationship Rocket Formula, and it is STP.
It's so simple. In fact, write it down someplace. It's not in your book anywhere. Just write it down. Write down STP. Now, you know what? What happens is a lot of times when people think of formulas, they think of a gimmick, or they think of a shortcut, or they think of something that's sort of a marketing ploy. But what we discovered when we were writing this book is that formulas aren't just a marketing ploy. For instance, E equals MC squared. That's not a gimmick or a marketing ploy. That had like the keys to unlocking the universe. I mean, it was amazing. Some of you remember from math class or geometry, A equals pi times r radius to the square. That's not just getting you going in circles. That actually is a tool for calculating the surface of a circle. I mean, these are really, really useful things, these formulas.
Yeah, formulas simplify the complicated, they unlock mysteries, they give a way forward and a repeatable way to build something lasting. You see, most marriages don't fail because of a lack of love. They often fail because of a lack of direction, and a formula will give you direction.
Yeah, so we're going to give you a very simple formula, STP. It's kind of our version of BHAG or WIN or SEALS, and we want you to write that down, and we're going to build the rest of our teaching under those three, under the S, the T, and the P, and tonight we're going to talk about the S. Mm-hmm.
Now, what I love most about this STP formula, aside from the fact that it's memorable or even repeatable or actionable and that it will transform your marriage, I love it because it comes from Jesus himself.
Yeah, you know what? If Jesus lived by a formula, as we've studied the scriptures, we would have to say that he lived by this formula, STP.
Yeah, if you take the complicated, challenging life of Jesus and boiled it down to its main ingredients, it would be STP. And if we want our marriages to look like Jesus's life and to look like him, then that's a great formula to put into practice.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to build over these next 3 nights. Tonight we're going to start with the S. And we're going to move on to our play number 7. And play number 7 is?
Play with grace.
Play with grace. Write it down. Play with grace. Now, there's something you need to understand about what Carolyn has put up with for the last 40 years of our marriage, is that I've got some quirks. I've got some broken pieces. I'm pretty ADHD. I mean, I'm pretty scattered. I find it really kind of hard to focus. I've got some mild dyslexia, which kind of gets me into trouble sometimes. I've got a slightly obsessive personality. I've always struggled with insecurity. And kind of like the cherry on the top is the fact that I get really excited about some terrible ideas. And this was one of the cases a few years ago when I came bounding up to Carolyn and said, I found the boat of our dreams. This is going to be the best boat ever.
And when Todd shows me one of his perfect finds, I always ask one very important question. What's wrong with it? Because there's always something wrong with the things that Todd finds.
This is a fantastic boat. I mean, the gel coat is beautiful. The seats are great. It's got 6 seats. The vinyl is fantastic. It's got a 3-liter Mercruiser engine.
But what's wrong with it?
Well, it's 12 hours away in Wisconsin.
And what's wrong with it?
Well, it's got a seized motor. I mean, it blew the motor, but I can fix it. I know I can. I really can.
Well, my pause in that moment of exchange a few years ago, Todd took that pause and that hesitation as, yes, go get it.
That's exactly how I heard it. So I did. I got one of our girls and we drove 12 hours. We rescued this boat in distress. We dragged it home. And then I recruited a couple of mechanics from Riverwood to come and help me at home and help me to get this boat put back together. And when I say help, what I mean is they did all the work and I handed them wrenches and iced tea. But at the end of it, in order to just sort of make me feel like I was part of this whole venture, they said, you can screw in the oil drain screw. And so I did. And that was my part in this whole thing.
And then Todd came to me, his face beaming, a really super big smile on it. And he said, all right, we're going to go tonight. You're going to have the ride of your life.
And so we launched the boat. Started it up, it roared beautifully. We are flying down the Red River, and I mean, I don't think you could hear me, but I had this big dumb smile on my face, and I was saying, see, I told you so. I knew I could do it.
But a few miles later, 5 things happened. The engine started knocking, the boat slowed down, smoke poured out of the back, and Todd's big dumb smile disappeared. And I had to start paddling. Yes, the ride of my life.
Yeah, I was devastated. I was so fed up with this thing. So the next day, I listed it on Kijiji as a boat with a blown motor. Mechanic came right away, said, I'll buy it. He looked at it and he said, hey, you do know what went wrong with this boat, don't you? And I said, I don't have a clue. He said, well, whoever screwed in the drain plug didn't tighten it enough, and it vibrated out, and all the oil drained out, and it seized the motor. It was a bad moment.
It was a very bad moment. Now, I've never pretended to be the perfect wife because I am far from that. And my usual go-to responses in moments like this are, see, I told you so, or you never listen to me. You always bite off more than you can chew. Those are my go-to comments.
And so that's what I was bracing for. But on this particular occasion, and I don't know if it was because you were getting ready to go to Eswatini and lead a team, she had her suitcase packed, she's heading towards the plane, but she didn't give me any of that. What she did is she kissed me goodbye, and she said, my, the adventures you get yourself into.
Now, that wasn't something I came up with. I actually read that once in a book called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus by John Gray. And John, in the book, tells this story about how one day he was flying from California to Sweden, and he had a stopover in New York City.
Yeah, well, his wife beforehand, his wife Bonnie, has said, hey, you remembered your passport, right? And he was actually insulted. And he tells how he was moping around the house thinking, oh, what does she think? I've never done any international traveling before. Why does she think I'm so dumb? And anyway, he gets to New York and
he goes into his bag to look for his passport, and it wasn't there. And he realized he had forgotten it at home. And so, very embarrassed, but out of options, John called Bonnie and confessed his mistake and asked if she could locate his passport and fax it in to the authorities.
Now, he was bracing himself for I told you so. You never listen. Why are you so scatterbrained? But instead, she simply said, my, the adventures you get yourself into. And she faxed the documents to him.
And we loved that response so much that we read about that we adopted it into our own marriage language. Now, whenever one of us lands into a mess, which we often do, we try to remember what grace sounds like. And grace sounds like my, the adventures you get yourself into.
You know, we realize something important. The real adventure in marriage is not avoiding failure, but rather it is responding to failure with grace instead of shame.
You see, shame is incredibly powerful, and it's really destructive. Shame doesn't say you made a mistake. Shame says you are the mistake.
Yeah, but I love what grace says. Grace rather says you matter more than the mistake. That's what grace says.
Now, we didn't invent the idea of grace. We didn't hear it on a marriage podcast or in a marriage counseling session or even in a book about relationships. We get it from Jesus. Jesus was the master of treating people with grace right in the middle of their biggest failures.
Yeah, there's this moment in John chapter 8 where the authorities have brought this woman, dragged her out. The religious authorities drag her out in front of Jesus. And it says this in the Bible. This woman, they said, the religious authorities, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. The law of Moses says we should stone her. What do you say?
Now, just there was a pause, because this was a really intense scene. This woman is standing in front of a crowd, and the crowd have stones in their hands. And they all are ready to stone her, to throw and hurt her, and her life was standing in the balance in that moment.
Yeah, and the religious authorities are testing Jesus. Because in that moment, if he says, don't stone her, then he's against the law, and that's going to be bad. If he says, do stone her, then he's against his own principles of grace and mercy. So everybody is hanging on his words and wondering, what is Jesus going to say?
And he then does something pretty strange. He bends down and he writes in the dirt.
Yeah, and we don't know what he wrote. But the next moment he stands up and he says this. It says in the Bible, it says, let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her.
And suddenly the whole atmosphere starts to change, and you can hear one by one stones dropping to the ground. First the older men, and they walk away, and then the younger men, stones dropping, and then the crowd is gone.
And now it's just Jesus and the woman standing there. And Jesus says, hey, where are all the people with the stones that were condemning you? And she says, well, they've all gone.
Woman, where are they? No one has condemned you. She says, no one, sir. And Jesus says something that has been echoing through history for 2,000 years. Neither do I condemn you. Go now and leave your life of sin.
Now, don't miss what was going on here. The crowd brought shame, and Jesus brings grace.
But grace didn't pretend that sin didn't happen. Grace doesn't ignore the depth of pain or the consequences of it or how long it takes to process and heal from something and to build trust again. Jesus didn't say to this woman, adultery is no big deal. He said, go and leave your life of sin.
But Jesus refuses to let her be defined by this moment of failure. And that's what grace does. Grace doesn't ignore the mistake. Grace just refuses to reduce the person to the mistake.
You know, our marriages are full of moments when our spouse lets us down, hurts or disappoints us, says something offensive, makes a mistake. And in those moments, we have two options.
Yeah, we can either become stone throwers or we can become grace givers. That's the choice that we get to make. The problem is that most of us, including me, I know exactly where the best stones are in our relationship because I know Carolyn's vulnerabilities. I know her history. I know her faults. I know her failures. And it's so easy for me to pick those stones up and to use those stones to condemn. But Jesus says, no, drop the stones. Be a grace giver instead.
Yeah, the strongest marriages we know are marriages where people have chosen, and it's a choice, to drop the stones and say, I'm not here to condemn you. I am here to help you get back up.
So that is the play of grace. And it comes under the S in our STP formula because S, and you can write this down, stands for selfless. If Jesus was anything, he was selfless. He calls us to be selfless. We're going to talk more about this in teaching part 2, but for right now, we're going to hand back to Jordan and Cam for a moment, and then we're going to go to our table discussions. All right, love to hear all the discussion on the table and know that processing these things with one another is so valuable. So a few minutes ago, we mentioned that this may be kind of shocking statement that if Jesus lived by a formula, that formula would be STP, and the S is all about being selfless.
And there's no clearer evidence for this than in the New Testament book of Philippians, chapter 2, verses 3 to 8. And it says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the others. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, who, being in very nature God, made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant. And he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross.
Yeah, I mean, if Jesus' life was marked by anything, it was this heart to be selfless, to be focused on, every word that he spoke, every action he took, every moment that he lived was for us. And it was all about saying, this is how far I would go for you. This is how far I would go to show you love. This is how far I would go, even to the point of giving up my own life for you.
But Jesus didn't just model selflessness. He calls us to be selfless too, to put others ahead of ourselves. And it turns out that selflessness is a powerful key to a championship marriage.
Yeah, so the first one under the S, selfless, is this whole idea of play with grace. It's not about living for myself. It's about living selflessly, laying down my stones when I could pick them up, but laying down my stones to actually lift up my spouse instead.
And greatest marriage play number 6 also requires selflessness. Write this one down as play number 6. Use your words.
I love this one. Use your words. There was a study in 2007 in the Scientific America, and it counted the number of words that men and women use. There's often this idea that men speak a lot less than women do. Well, it turned out that women on average speak 16,215 words a day. Men speak just a little bit less, 15,669 words a day. But when you average it out, that means that we are speaking 112,000 words a week to each other.
And that is a lot of words. And all of those words fall into one of 2 categories. And they're very powerful. Proverbs 18 verse 21 says, words kill, words give life. They're either poison or fruit. You choose. Proverbs 12:6 puts it like this: the words of the wicked are like murderous ambush, but the words of the godly save lives. Words can actually be like murderous ambush and kill. Words can actually be like a life preserver and save a life.
Yeah. There's this woman, Annie Dillard, who wrote a book about writing. And in it, she has a quote. She says this: the line of words feels for cracks in the firmament. I love that quote. The line of words feels for cracks in the firmament. The words that you and I speak, they don't just skitter off the soul of our spouse. They actually look for the broken cracks, and they find a way to get into those cracks. And so they get into those cracks as either poison or fruit, as life or as death.
Yeah, so we need to be constantly asking, are the 112,000 words that I speak each week, how many of them are thoughtless or haphazard or reactionary, or maybe even life-sucking words? And how many of the 112,000 words that I speak, how many of them are intentional, purposeful, and life-giving words?
Yeah, because words by their very nature can be very selfish. They can be very self-centered. I mean, my words that I speak are often all about being good for me. Like they protect me, they explain me, they excuse me, they win the argument, they do all these things to benefit me. But we're trying to turn this to make sure that our words are selfless so that they're not benefiting me, but they're benefiting you.
On the Relationship Rocket website, under free resources, we have a page called the Marriage Power Phrase Cheat Sheet. And let's face it, words can be hard to manage. And we often default to the same old words, don't we? We get lazy with our words. We allow our words to be fueled by whatever is churning on the inside in the moment. And we need to use some powerful words, and this cheat sheet can help you with that and give some new word habits.
Yeah, so we'd love for you to get that and have some fun with some of those phrases. But tonight we want to be ridiculously practical by giving you the top 5 of what we think are the top 5 intentional phrases that we should be using with one another. Now, before we roll them out, there's something we want you to notice about these.
Yeah, they're very simple. They're not complicated or complex. They are actually no more than 6 words long. And each one is packed with power and with impact.
Yeah, so we want you to write them down and we want you to use them. Practice using them. It might feel a little awkward at first, but that's okay. So here's the first one. Number 1, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. Now, none of you here are my therapist, but I will tell you that there are 2 phrases that I never heard from my father. I never heard I love you, and I never heard I'm proud of you. And you know how this has impacted me, and even to this day, I continue to live with a void in my life from never hearing those words. So I've determined I'm not going to be like that with my kids or with you. I want to make sure that I am saying, I'm so proud of you, because there is this word, this phrase really reinforces the identity and the character. It's a game changer.
The second phrase is thank you for that. You know, it's shocking how we forget to say thank you. But thank you, it's full of respect for the other person, and it's full of gratitude. You know, when we expect someone to do something, rarely do we say thank you. But we shouldn't be in a relationship with our spouse that we always have these high expectations on them, and we never say thank you for what they do. But when we do that, when we use these powerful words of thank you, it fuels people. It fuels your spouse. When you thank them for dropping the kids off, for making dinner, for saying thank you for taking care of the budget, thank you for mowing the lawn, thank you for sharing your body with me. All of these are just powerful thank yous. Thank your spouse for what they are doing and how they are impacting your life and your family.
Yeah, there should never be a day that goes by without you saying thank you for something. There's always something. Number 3, here we go. I see how hard you're trying. This is the longest one, but I see how hard you're trying. This is such a powerful, and maybe more for, you know, we saw that on the screen, didn't we, earlier, for the guys. What they longed for most was appreciation, right? Hey, I see how hard you're trying. I see how hard you're working. I see the effort you're putting into this, and I just want to let you know I recognize that. That validation of the effort is extremely powerful to a person's soul.
And the last 2 only have 4 words each. They're so small, so simple, and yet so powerful. Number 4, I'm on your side. I'm on your side. And this one is particularly useful during misunderstandings or when you're in a conflict, because it goes back to reinforcing number 10 that we talked about last week, choose your team. This one uses words to make a verbal declaration that I'm on your team. And this is something your spouse needs to hear regularly, and it's something that you need to hear yourself saying regularly, that your spouse is on your team.
Yeah, that's powerful. And we've already made it to the last one, but here it is. Write it down. I believe in you. I believe in you. There are a few phrases in the world that come with building more confidence and emotional safety in this one. Now, you know, when I was a young adult and into college, I had a favorite pair of running shoes. They were Stan Smiths. Anybody here ever have Stan Smith running shoes? Okay, there's a few of you. Stan Smiths, they're an Adidas running shoe. And I loved them, but I didn't bother looking up or understanding who Stan Smith even was till a number of years later.
Yeah, back in the 1960s, Stan Smith was a college tennis player out of the University of California, and he was focusing on 2 things in his life, his faith and tennis. And Stan was a really good tennis player, but he longed to be great. And in 1967, he won the NCAA doubles title, and suddenly Stan was playing on a much bigger stage, and soon he was traveling the world trying to make his mark as a professional player. But the competition was ferocious.
Yeah, that competition had a name, Pancho Gonzalez. And Pancho Gonzalez, Stan found himself across the net from him, across the court in London, and Gonzalez absolutely slaughtered Stan Smith. And in fact, he went away. He lost so badly that he walked away from that match, and he wondered if he was ever going to make it in the big leagues. He was so discouraged. He was so downcast. He was second-guessing himself. And then he noticed this man walking out of the stands straight for him.
And Stan recognized him immediately. It was a man he had admired his whole life, but had never actually met. His name was Jack Kramer, and he was the guy who ushered in the tennis star era, and he was one of the greats. Stan was shocked that Kramer was coming to talk to him. But he was even more shocked by what Kramer said to him.
Yeah, he comes up to him and he says this, "Kid, you're playing well. Keep it up. I believe you have what it makes to be one of the greatest tennis players in the world." Well, those words found the cracks in the firmament, and they sunk down. And they planted something in him. Just those words of, "I believe in you." Planted something in him. A few hours later, he went on to win the doubles in that tournament. Then he went to Stockholm and he won the singles and the doubles. Then he went to Japan and he won the Grand Prix. A short time later, he won the US Open, and then he won Wimbledon. And he went on to become the #1 tennis player in the world. And his career lasted decades, and Adidas ended up signing him on as the longest running shoe contract in their history.
But to this day, Stan Smith says the turning point in his life and his career happened in a quiet moment of painful loss, when Jack Kramer walked over to him and spoke a few simple words, "I believe in you."
Yeah. You know, the fact is that most of us won't have a spouse that plays in Wimbledon. But the reality is that you have the power to put into your spouse either belief or doubt. You plant that in them. And sometimes one of the most life-changing things you can do is simply utter 4 little words. "I believe in you." Now, I have a question for you. What if somebody here says, "I don't do well with words. I'm an introvert. I get uncomfortable using words. I'm far better just being quiet." What do you say?
You know, I would say, just try. Take it slow, but really just experiment and experiment with these phrases we're giving you. Test drive them. And it might feel a little awkward at first, but if you stick to it, it will become natural and you will be able to have those words become free-flowing.
Yeah, and the reality is that none of these top 10 plays that we're talking about, none of us are good at them. Like, they're all a skill that we need to learn. We all need to learn. We all need to push ourselves to learn some of these things. And so, you know, for some of us, the fact is that we are going to be really good with our words, and others of us aren't going to be so good, but there's something else that maybe we're good at. Listen, whether you are good with words or you're not good with words, the words you speak, and, listen to this, the words you leave unspoken have massive impact upon your spouse. They will find the cracks in the firmament, and either they will drain and damage and kill something in your spouse,
or they will revive and invigorate and breathe life into your spouse again. When it comes to words, some of us speak too few, and we need to amp up the words to our spouse, and others of us maybe speak too much.
Yeah, you know, I mean, we can suffocate on both ends. We can suffocate from not enough words, and some of us are suffocating from too many words, and really it would be good if our spouse just sort of asked a good question and then learned to listen a lot better. But either way, using your words also requires me to, using my words, I'll put it personally, using my words requires me to stop thinking about myself and just what's good for me, and to think what's coming out of my mouth, 112,000 words a week, how many of them are good for you, and how many of them are building you up? Are they fruit or are they poison?
Mm-hmm. Now, we've only explored 2 of the greatest plays that fall under the S for the STP formula, and our book goes through some more, but we just want to focus on those 2 tonight, and we want to leave you with this thought. What are you doing with these plays? Are you playing with grace, like we talked about earlier? And are we playing with using our words in a way that sinks into those cracks, like Todd was talking about, in a way that breathes life into our spouse?
Yeah. You know, I have a bracelet that I made with the STP formula on it. And the reason I made it as a bracelet is because I want to be reminded every day, and I want to put my life, my words, my actions, my thoughts through the grid. And the first one is asking ourselves every day, is this a self-centered act? Is this a self-centered bunch of words? Am I acting selfish right now, or am I being selfless? And if we can get that selfless thing down, man, that is just a recipe for a championship marriage. Now, we're going to hand off right now to one of our favorite times, which we like to call Knee to Knee. This is kind of our post-game show. We're going to give you a timer on the screen. This is a time for you to, and you can scoot your chairs in this room away. At home, you won't have to worry about that, but here you can scoot your chairs away a little bit further if you want. Have some time and ask the questions to one another on the screen, okay? Handing it off to you.